23-year-old woman stands in a billionaire's office, not to beg for mercy, but to negotiate the terms of her own surrender. $3 million in debt. One impossible offer. Marry a 70-year-old Mafia kingpin, give him an heir within 12 months, and walk away free, if she survives. But Lena Park doesn't break easily. And the man across the desk? He's about to learn that the wrong woman in a gilded cage is more dangerous than any enemy he's ever faced. Stay with me until the end of this story, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. Besh. Pachi. The office smelled like old leather and older money. Lena Park sat in a chair that probably cost more than her mother's entire apartment, hands folded in her lap, spine straight. 23 years old, and she'd already learned that posture was the only thing you got to keep when everything else got taken away. The man across the mahogany desk hadn't spoken in 4 minutes. She'd counted. Victor Castelli didn't need to fill silence. He owned it. 70 years old, they'd told her. The number felt wrong sitting next to the man in front of her. Sure, his hair had gone silver, and there were lines around his eyes that looked like they'd been carved rather than earned, but there was nothing frail about him, nothing soft. He sat like a monument, like something built to last centuries. Your mother, he said finally, voice flat as concrete, owes my organization $3.2 million. Lena didn't flinch. She'd known the number before she walked in, had it memorized down to the last cent. Her mother's rehab stay alone was $80,000. The interest on the original loan had tripled the debt. The late fees had added another $250,000. Gambling addiction didn't care about math. It just ate and ate until there was nothing left. I'm aware, Lena said. Victor's eyes, pale gray, almost colorless, fixed on her with the kind of attention that made her skin prickle. Your mother cannot pay. No, you cannot pay. Not in cash. Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. Might have been. With a face like that, carved from granite and discipline, it was hard to tell. You're 23 years old. You work as a junior accountant. You make $42,000 a year before taxes. You have $1,700 in savings and $12,000 in student debt. You rent a studio apartment in Queens for $1,900 a month. You are, by every measurable standard, worthless to me. Lena's jaw tightened. She'd expected cruelty. Men like Victor Castelli didn't get where they were by being kind. But hearing your entire life reduced to a balance sheet still stung. And yet, she said quietly, you agreed to meet with me. Victor leaned back in his chair. The leather creaked. I did. Why? Because your mother begged me to spare you, and because I have a problem that requires a very specific solution. He opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, and slid it across the desk. Open it. Lena hesitated, then reached for the folder. Inside were photographs. Victor at a funeral, face blank. Victor at a board meeting, surrounded by men in expensive suits. Victor at what looked like a wedding, standing next to a woman in white who couldn't have been older than 30. My father, Victor said, is dying. Lena looked up. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. He has 6 months, maybe less. Victor's voice didn't change, didn't soften. He's also the current head of the Castelli family. When he dies, control of the organization passes to his successor. Traditionally, that would be me. I'm the oldest, but my father is a traditional man in some ways and utterly ruthless in others. He's decreed that succession will go to whichever of his children produces the first legitimate heir. Lena's stomach dropped. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, Victor continued. All married, all attempting to conceive. My youngest brother's wife is already 4 months pregnant. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. You need a wife, Lena said. I need an heir. And if I say no? Victor's expression didn't change. Your mother's debt transfers to her guarantor, you. My people will come to collect. They will take everything you own, and when that isn't enough, they will take everything you could ever earn. You will spend the rest of your life in a hole so deep you'll forget what sunlight looks like. Lena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs. And if I say yes? You marry me. You move into my home. You fulfill the obligations of a wife until you become pregnant. Once you deliver a healthy child, your mother's debt is erased. Completely. You receive a one-time payment of $5 million and a legal separation. You walk away. $5 million. Her mother free. A year of her life, maybe less. Lena looked down at the photographs again. The woman in the wedding picture was smiling. Victor wasn't. What happened to her? She asked. Your last wife. I've never been married. Then who? A business arrangement. She married my cousin. The smile was for the cameras. Victor folded his hands on the desk. You'll have 48 hours to decide. If you agree, the wedding will take place in 3 days. My lawyers will draw up a contract outlining every term, every expectation, every consequence. You'll sign it, you'll honor it, and when it's over, you'll leave. Lena's throat felt tight. I have conditions. Victor raised an eyebrow. You're not in a position to negotiate. Then you're not desperate enough. Lena met his eyes, held them. You could marry anyone, someone from your world, someone who already understands the rules. But you're here, talking to me, because everyone who knows you knows this is about succession, not love. They'd expect a prenup, a clause, some kind of guarantee. I'm nobody. A girl from Queens with a broken family and too much debt. No one will question why you picked me. I'm perfect because I'm disposable. Victor's face was unreadable. So here are my terms, Lena said, voice steady despite the fear clawing at her ribs. My mother goes to the best rehab facility in the state. Not the cheapest, the best. You pay for it. All of it. And when she gets out, she has a place to live. Somewhere safe. Somewhere your people can't touch her. Done. I want my own bank account, my own money. Enough to live on while I'm with you. You'll have access to anything you need. No. Lena shook her head. Not access. My own account. In my name. $10,000 a month deposited automatically. No one else touches it. Victor's jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he'd refuse. Then he nodded once. Agreed. And when it's over, Lena said, when I give you your heir, I disappear. No contact. No obligations. You don't look for me. You don't follow me. You let me go. That was already part of the arrangement. I need to hear you say it. Victor leaned forward, elbows on the desk, eyes locked on hers. When you fulfill your obligations, Lena Park, you will be free. I will not look for you. I will not follow you. You will leave my life as completely as you entered it. You have my word. The word of a Mafia kingpin, worth exactly as much as the violence backing it. Lena stood. Her legs felt unsteady, but she kept her voice level. I'll have an answer in 48 hours. You already know your answer. He was right. She did. Had known it the moment she walked into the building, but saying it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff. I need time to think. You need time to lie to yourself. Victor stood as well, and even across the desk, his presence was overwhelming. Gravity given human form. You'll say yes because you have no other choice, but you'll spend 2 days pretending you do. It's a waste of time, but if it makes you feel more in control, take it. Lena's nails bit into her palms. You're a real bastard, you know that? Yes. Victor walked around the desk, stopped a few feet away. Up close, he was taller than she'd expected, broader, the kind of man who'd learned to use his body as a weapon long before he'd learned to use his words. But I'm an honest one. I won't lie to you, Lena. I won't pretend this is something it isn't. You want honesty? Here it is. I don't love you. I will never love you. This is a transaction. You give me an heir. I give you freedom. Everything else is theater. Lena lifted her chin. Good. Because I don't love you either. Then we understand each other. Perfectly. Victor pulled a card from his jacket pocket and held it out. My personal number. Call when you've made your decision. Or don't. Either way, I'll have my answer. Lena took the card. Their fingers brushed. His skin was warm. She'd expected cold. One more thing, she said. What? In public, you said I'd belong to you completely. What does that mean? Victor's expression shifted. Not quite a smile. Something darker. It means you'll play the role of a devoted wife. You'll stand beside me. Smile when expected. Touch me when appropriate. Convince the world that this marriage is real. My enemies will look for weakness. They'll look for cracks. You cannot give them any. And in private? In private, you're free to hate me as much as you want. Lena slipped the card into her pocket, turned toward the door. Her hand was on the handle when Victor spoke again. Lena. She looked back. If you say yes, he said quietly, there's no changing your mind. No running, no second chances. Once you're mine until the contract is fulfilled. Do you understand? Lena's pulse hammered in her throat. I understand. Good. She walked out. The hallway outside was all marble and recessed lighting. Two men in dark suits stood near the elevator, hands folded, eyes tracking her movement. She didn't look at them, didn't acknowledge their existence, just pressed the button and waited. The doors opened. She stepped inside. And only when the elevator started its descent, only when she was alone and the adrenaline finally crashed, did Lena let herself shake. 47 hours later, Lena called the number on the card. Victor answered on the first ring. Yes or no? Lena stood in her tiny apartment looking out at the Queen's skyline. Gray buildings, gray sky, gray life. Yes, she said. The car will pick you up tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bring nothing. Everything you need will be provided. I need to see my mother first. You'll see her after the wedding, not before. That wasn't part of the deal. The deal, Victor said, voice hard, is that she goes to rehab. She's already there. The facility called me an hour ago to confirm her admission. You want to see her? Earn it. Marry me first. Lena's hand tightened on the phone. You son of a... 9 a.m., Lena. Don't be late. The line went dead. Lena threw the phone onto the couch and pressed her hands against the window. The glass was cold. Everything was cold. She'd just agreed to marry a man 30 years older than her mother. A man whose world was built on violence and power and secrets she couldn't begin to understand. And there was no going back. What? The car was a black Mercedes with windows so dark she couldn't see inside. It pulled up at exactly 9 a.m. Lena was waiting on the curb, wearing the only dress she owned that didn't look like it came from a clearance rack. Navy blue, simple. The driver got out, one of the men from Victor's office, and opened the rear door without a word. She climbed in. The interior smelled like new leather and expensive cologne. Victor sat on the far side, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her rent. He didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her presence, just stared out the window as the car pulled into traffic. 5 minutes passed in silence, then 10. Lena cleared her throat. Are you always this chatty? Only when I have something to say. Where are we going? City Hall. That's it? No church? No reception? Victor finally looked at her. This isn't a celebration, Lena. It's a legal formality. We sign the papers. We leave. The contract is binding. What about the actual contract, the one you mentioned? He reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick envelope. It's all here. Read it now. Sign it after the ceremony. Lena took the envelope, opened it. The contract was 40 pages long, dense legal language, clauses and subclauses and addendums. She scanned the first page, then the second. This says I can't leave the property without your permission. Correct. For a year? Or until you're pregnant, whichever comes first. Lena looked up. You're putting me under house arrest. I'm protecting my investment. My enemies will come for you the moment they know you exist. The estate is secure, monitored. Leaving it puts you at risk. And if I refuse, then you're in breach of contract, and we both know what happens then. Lena's jaw clenched. She kept reading. It says here I'm required to share your bedroom. Appearances matter. I said in private you're free to hate me. I didn't say you'd have privacy. Victor's voice was flat, clinical. The staff will notice if we sleep in separate rooms. They'll talk. Word will spread. My siblings will use it against me. You'll sleep in my room, in my bed. Whether or not anything happens there is irrelevant. Lena felt her cheeks heat. This is insane. This is the agreement. She flipped to the final page. Saw the payout amount. $5 million. Saw the clause about her mother's debt. Erased in full upon delivery of a healthy child. Saw the separation terms. Clean. Final. No strings. She pulled out a pen. Where do I sign? Victor's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Something that might have been respect or regret. After the ceremony, not before. The car stopped. Lena looked out the window. City Hall loomed ahead, all gray stone and bureaucratic indifference. People streamed up the steps, couples holding hands, families laughing, normal people having normal weddings. And then there was her. The driver opened the door. Victor stepped out first, then offered his hand. Lena hesitated, then took it. His grip was firm, steady. The kind of hand that had signed death warrants and business deals with equal indifference. "Ready?" he asked. "No." "Yes." They walked inside. The ceremony took 12 minutes. A clerk with tired eyes and a coffee stain on her blouse recited the vows in a monotone. Victor answered with the same flat precision he used for everything else. Lena's voice shook on, "I do," but she got it out. The clerk pronounced them married. No one clapped. No one kissed. Victor signed the license. Lena signed next to him. The clerk stamped it, filed it, and gestured to the door. "Congratulations. Next." That was it. Lena Park was now Lena Castelli, and she'd never felt more alone. The estate was an hour outside the city, hidden behind iron gates and walls so high she couldn't see the top. The car passed through 3 separate checkpoints before pulling up to the main house. House. The word felt wrong. This was a fortress, all stone and steel and windows that reflected nothing. Victor's world made physical. The driver opened the door. Lena stepped out onto a gravel driveway that crunched under her feet. The air smelled different here. Cleaner, quieter, like the city couldn't quite reach this far. "This way," Victor said. He led her up a set of marble steps, through doors that opened on silent hinges, into a foyer that looked like a museum. High ceilings, chandelier dripping crystal, floors so polished she could see her reflection. A woman appeared from a side hallway. 50s, maybe. Severe gray hair pulled into a bun. Dressed in black. "Mr. Castelli," she said, voice crisp. "Welcome home." "Mrs. Kozlov, this is my wife Lena. She'll be staying in the East Wing. See that her things are unpacked." "I don't have things," Lena said. "You told me not to bring anything." "Then see that she has things." Victor turned to Lena. "Mrs. Kozlov manages the household. If you need something, ask her. Dinner is at 7. Don't be late." He walked away. Just like that. Lena stood in the foyer watching him disappear down a hallway and felt the full weight of what she'd done settle over her like a shroud. Mrs. Kozlov cleared her throat. "If you'll follow me, Mrs. Castelli." Mrs. Castelli. The name felt like a lie. Lena followed the woman through a maze of hallways. Everything was pristine, untouched, like a house that had never been lived in. They climbed a staircase, turned left, then right, then left again. Lena tried to memorize the route, but it all blurred together. Finally, Mrs. Kozlov stopped in front of a set of double doors. "The master bedroom," she said, pushing them open. The room beyond was enormous. King-sized bed, sitting area, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking gardens that seemed to stretch forever. Everything decorated in shades of gray and black and white. No color, no warmth, just cold, perfect elegance. "Mr. Castelli's dressing room is through there," Mrs. Kozlov said, pointing to a door on the left. "Yours is on the right. The bathroom connects both. I'll have clothes sent up within the hour." "Wait," Lena said. "This is his room?" "Yes. Where's mine?" Mrs. Kozlov's expression didn't change. "This is your room, Mrs. Castelli. You and Mr. Castelli share the master suite." Lena looked at the bed, imagined sleeping next to a man she barely knew, a man who'd bought her like a commodity. "Right," she said faintly. "Of course. Dinner is at 7 in the formal dining room. I'll send someone to escort you." Mrs. Kozlov turned to leave, then paused. "A word of advice, Mrs. Castelli. Mr. Castelli values punctuality and discretion above all else. Don't make him wait, and don't ask questions you don't want answered." Then she was gone. Lena stood alone in the enormous room and wondered what the hell she'd just signed away. The clothes arrived an hour later. A team of women in matching black uniforms brought in garment bags, shoe boxes, jewelry cases. They hung everything in the dressing room without speaking, arranged it by color and type, then left as silently as they'd come. Lena walked into the dressing room after they'd gone and stared. Dresses. Dozens of them. Cocktail dresses, evening gowns, day dresses, all in her size, all designer labels she'd only ever seen in magazines. Shoes lined the walls, heels, flats, boots. A jewelry drawer held pieces that probably cost more than her entire education. She pulled out a dress at random. Black silk. Simple lines. Elegant. The kind of thing she'd never have an occasion to wear in her old life. Her old life. 2 days ago, she'd been an accountant in Queens. Now she was standing in a closet worth more than most people made in a decade, married to a man who terrified her. Waiting for dinner like this was normal. Lena hung the dress back up and walked to the window. The gardens stretched out below. Perfect hedges, stone pathways, a fountain in the center that probably ran on some kind of timer. Everything controlled, everything planned. Nothing left to chance. A prison made of beauty. She pressed her forehead against the glass and closed her eyes. At 6:55, there was a knock on the door. Lena had changed into the black dress, had put on a pair of heels that fit perfectly, had stared at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. She opened the door. A young man in a dark suit stood in the hallway. "Mrs. Castelli, I'm here to escort you to dinner." "I can find it myself." Mr. Castelli insists. Of course he did. Lena followed the man through the maze of hallways, down the staircase, through another set of corridors, until they reached a set of doors. He opened them, gestured her inside, then disappeared. The dining room was as cold and formal as the rest of the house. Long table, high-backed chairs, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a palace. Victor sat at the head of the table, reading something on his phone. He didn't look up when she entered. Lena walked to the opposite end of the table and sat down. Victor kept reading. A minute passed, then another. Finally, Lena cleared her throat. "Am I supposed to just sit here in silence?" "If you prefer conversation, you're welcome to initiate it." "Fine. How was your day?" "Productive." "That's it? Productive?" Victor set down his phone and looked at her. "What would you like me to say, Lena? That I spent the afternoon restructuring a shipping contract? That I had a conference call with associates in Berlin? That I reviewed security footage from the East Gate? None of it concerns you. I'm your wife. You're an employee." The words hit like a slap. Lena's hands curled into fists under the table. "You're right, I forgot. This is a transaction. My mistake." Victor's jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he might say something else. Might soften. But then a server appeared with the first course, and the moment passed. They ate in silence. The food was incredible. Probably prepared by some chef who'd trained in Paris or Tokyo or wherever rich people sent their chefs to learn how to make vegetables taste like art. Lena barely tasted it. Every bite felt like swallowing glass. Halfway through the main course, she set down her fork. "I want to see my mother." "Not yet." "You said she's in rehab. I want to confirm that." "You don't trust me?" "Should I?" Victor took a sip of wine. "Your mother is at Green Hill Recovery Center in upstate New York. Room 304. She arrived yesterday at 2 p.m. Her treatment plan was filed this morning. If you'd like, I can have Mrs. Kozlov pull up the admission records." Lena stared at him. "You're serious?" "I don't lie, Lena. I told you that." "Then let me visit her." "No." "Why not?" "Because the moment you leave this property, you become a target. My siblings will have you followed. They'll use your mother as leverage. They'll threaten her, hurt her, do whatever it takes to force you into making a mistake." Victor set down his glass. "Your mother is safe where she is. Hidden, protected. The moment you visit, that changes. So no, you don't see her until this is over." Lena's throat felt tight. "I hate you." "Good. I mean it." "So do I." Victor stood, tossed his napkin onto the table. "I have work to do. You're free to explore the house. The library is on the second floor. The gym is in the west wing. Stay away from my office, and don't leave the property." He walked out. Lena sat alone at the long table, surrounded by crystal and china, and the echoes of a conversation that felt more like a negotiation than a marriage. And for the first time since signing the contract, she let herself cry. The first week passed in a fog of silence and routine. Victor left early every morning, came back late every night. They ate dinner together in that same suffocating quiet, exchanged maybe 10 words, then went their separate ways. He slept on his side of the bed. She slept on hers. A wall of pillows between them. Neither crossed it. Lena explored the house. Found the library, floor-to-ceiling shelves, first editions, books in languages she didn't recognize. Found the gym, state-of-the-art equipment, empty. Found a dozen locked doors she wasn't allowed to open. She called her mother's rehab center. They confirmed she was there, confirmed she was safe, wouldn't let Lena speak to her. Family contact is restricted during the first 30 days, the administrator said. It's part of the treatment protocol. Lena wanted to scream, wanted to demand. But what could she do? Victor held all the cards. On the 8th day, she broke. Victor came home at 9, later than usual. Lena was waiting in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, still dressed. He stopped when he saw her. "What?" he said. "I can't do this." "Can't do what?" "This." She gestured around the room. "The silence, the isolation. I feel like I'm disappearing." Victor took off his jacket, hung it in the closet. "You're not disappearing. You're adjusting. I'm suffocating." "You're being dramatic." Lena stood, anger finally overriding fear. "You don't get to tell me how I feel. You don't get to lock me in this house and expect me to just accept it. I'm a person, Victor, not a broodmare." Something flickered across his face, something sharp. "Is that what you think this is?" "Isn't it?" Victor crossed the room in 3 strides, stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "You want honesty? Fine. Yes, I need an heir. Yes, you're here to provide one. But don't mistake function for intention. I didn't lock you in this house to break you, Lena. I locked you in to keep you alive." "Then tell me why." Her voice cracked. "Tell me what's really happening. Because right now I feel like a prisoner, and you're the warden, and I don't even know what I'm guilty of." Victor's jaw worked. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then finally, "Sit down." "What?" "Sit down." Lena sat. Victor walked to the window, stared out at the dark gardens. "My father has 3 other children. Marco, the youngest. He's 35, married, reckless. His wife is pregnant, due in 4 months. If she delivers first, he wins. Then there's Dominic, 42, married twice. Currently engaged in a very public affair. His wife hates him, but she's desperate for the inheritance. She'll do anything to conceive. And finally, my sister, Elena, 47, never married, never wanted children. But she wants the empire more than anything else in the world." He turned back to face her. "All 3 of them will do whatever it takes to ensure their child is born first. Whatever it takes, Lena. Do you understand what that means?" Lena's stomach knotted. "They'd hurt me. They'd kill you." The room felt colder. "This marriage isn't just about succession," Victor said quietly. "It's about war. A war I didn't start, but one I have to win. Because if I don't, if one of them takes control, everything my father built will burn. The legitimate businesses, the charities, the infrastructure that employs thousands of people, it'll all collapse. Marco's a fool. Dominic's a sadist. Elena's brilliant, but she's ruthless in ways that make me look soft. None of them are fit to lead. And you are?" The words came out sharper than she intended. Victor's smile was bitter. "No. But I'm the only option that doesn't end in blood." Lena looked down at her hands. "Why me? Why not someone from your world? Someone who already knows how to survive this? Because everyone in my world has an agenda, a family, a history. You don't. You're clean, uncomplicated. And most importantly, you're desperate enough to agree." He moved closer, crouched down so they were eye level. "I'm not a good man, Lena. I've done things that would make you sick, but I keep my word. And I promise you this, as long as you're under my roof, as long as you're my wife, no one will touch you. Not my siblings, not my enemies. No one." Lena met his eyes, saw the truth there, the violence barely restrained. "And after? When this is over? You disappear, just like we agreed, with $5 million and a target on my back. The target disappears when the contract ends. Once the child is born, once succession is secured, you're no longer relevant. You'll be free." Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this nightmare had an expiration date, but trust wasn't something she had left to give. "What if I can't do it?" she whispered. "What if I can't get pregnant?" Victor stood, walked back to the window. "Then we both lose." The next morning, Lena woke to find Victor already gone, but there was a note on his pillow. She picked it up, unfolded it. The library has a collection of first edition poetry. Second shelf from the top, east wall. Start there. No signature, no explanation. Lena got dressed and went to the library, found the shelf, found the books, and spent the entire day reading poetry she'd never heard of, written by people who understood what it meant to be trapped. It wasn't much, but it was something. The poetry helped. Not much, but enough. Lena found herself returning to the library every morning after Victor left, pulling down books with cracked spines and pages that smelled like time itself. She read Dickinson and Plath and poets whose names she couldn't pronounce, words about cages and freedom and the space between wanting to leave and having nowhere to go. 2 weeks became 3. Victor remained a ghost in his own house. They still ate dinner together, still went through the motions of polite distance, but something had shifted after their conversation. He asked her once if she'd found the poetry collection. She said yes. He nodded and went back to his meal. That was the extent of it. The staff moved around her like she was made of glass. Mrs. Kozlov appeared every morning with a schedule. Breakfast at 8, lunch at noon, dinner at 7. The gardeners worked outside her window but never made eye contact. The security team rotated shifts with military precision, always watching, never speaking. Lena felt like a museum exhibit. Look, but don't touch. On the 23rd day, she woke up and Victor was still in bed. She froze, half sitting up, disoriented. He was on his side of the mattress, eyes closed, breathing steady. She'd never seen him sleep before. He always left before dawn, came back after she was already under the covers. Seeing him like this, still, unguarded, felt invasive somehow. She slipped out of bed as quietly as possible, grabbed clothes from her dressing room, and was halfway to the bathroom when his voice stopped her. It's Saturday. Lena turned. Victor's eyes were open now, watching her. What? Saturday. I don't work Saturdays. Oh. She clutched her clothes to her chest. I didn't know. Now you do. He sat up, ran a hand through his hair. It was the most disheveled she'd ever seen him. Almost human. Mrs. Kozlov takes the weekends off. The kitchen staff will leave breakfast in the warming drawers. Help yourself. You're not eating? I'll eat later. Lena hesitated. Do you want me to leave? I can go to the library or... This is your room too, Lena. You don't need my permission to exist in it. The words should have been reassuring. Instead, they just highlighted how conditional everything was. She nodded and escaped to the bathroom. When she came out 20 minutes later, showered and dressed, Victor was gone. She found him in the gym. Lena had avoided the place since her first week. Too many mirrors, too much chrome, too much space that echoed when she moved. But she heard the rhythmic thud of fists hitting leather as she passed the doorway and stopped. Victor stood in front of a heavy bag, shirtless, wearing only black athletic pants. His back was to her. Scars crisscrossed his skin like a map of violence, some old and faded, some newer, pink and raised. He hit the bag with mechanical precision. Left, right, no wasted movement, no hesitation. Lena knew she should walk away, knew she was intruding, but she couldn't stop staring at the scars. You can come in, Victor said without turning around. Or you can keep standing in the hallway. Either way, stop hovering. Heat crept up her neck. She stepped inside. I wasn't hovering. You were. He hit the bag 3 more times, then stopped, turned around. His chest was scarred too, a patchwork of old wounds. See something interesting? I didn't mean to stare. Everyone stares the first time. Victor grabbed a towel from a nearby bench, wiped his face. Knives, mostly. 2 bullets, 1 piece of shrapnel from a car bomb in Prague. Occupational hazards. Lena swallowed. Does it hurt? Not anymore. Did it? When it happened? Victor's eyes met hers. Yes. The single word carried weight. Not just physical pain, something deeper. Lena looked away first. I should go. Why? Because I'm bothering you. You're not. Victor tossed the towel aside, walked to a weight bench. You've been here almost a month. You've barely left your room except for meals and the library. That's not healthy. I didn't realize you cared about my health. I care about functionality. A depressed, isolated woman doesn't get pregnant. Basic biology. There it was, the reminder, the contract, the whole reason she existed in his world. Lena's jaw tightened. Right, wouldn't want to damage the merchandise. Victor stopped mid-reach for a dumbbell, straightened. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? No. He crossed to where she stood, stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could smell sweat and something else. Soap, maybe. Cedar. You want to hate me, Lena? Fine. Hate me. But don't put words in my mouth. I'm practical, not cruel. There's a difference? Yes. Explain it to me. Victor studied her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Cruelty is violence for its own sake. Inflicting pain because you enjoy it. I don't enjoy this. Any of it. But I do what's necessary, and right now what's necessary is making sure you don't lose your mind inside this house. So this is what? Charity? This is common sense. Lena laughed. It came out sharp, bitter. You locked me in a mansion, told me I can't see my family, reminded me every single day that I'm here for one reason only, and now you're worried about my mental health? That's rich. Would you prefer I pretend to care about more than the contract requires? I'd prefer honesty. You have it. Victor's voice didn't rise, didn't soften, just stayed that same flat, immovable tone. I don't love you. I won't love you. But I'm not going to watch you wither away either. So if you need to work out, work out. If you need to scream, scream. If you need to break something, I'll give you something to break. But don't just disappear into that library and pretend you're fine. Lena's throat felt tight. Why do you care? Because dead-eyed compliance doesn't produce the result we need. Of course. Always the contract. Always the end goal. She turned to leave. Lena. She stopped but didn't look back. There's a pool, Victor said, through the East Terrace. Heated. Private. No one will bother you there. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you need space that isn't full of books or furniture or things that remind you you're trapped. Lena finally looked over her shoulder. Victor was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Not pity, not sympathy. Something closer to recognition, like he knew what it felt like to be caged. Thank you, she said quietly. He nodded once, turned back to his weights. Lena left before she could say anything else. The pool was exactly what he'd described. Heated, private, surrounded by stone walls covered in ivy and climbing roses that hadn't bloomed yet. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the gray sky above. Lena sat on the edge, feet dangling in, fully dressed. She didn't have a swimsuit, hadn't thought to ask for one, but just being here, in open air that wasn't a window view, felt like breathing for the first time in weeks. She stayed until the sun started setting, until the cold bit through her clothes and her feet were numb. When she came back inside, there was a box on her bed. She opened it. 3 swimsuits, different styles, all her size, no note. She didn't know whether to be grateful or unnerved. Tuck. The next Saturday, Victor asked her a question at breakfast. They were sitting in the smaller dining room, less formal, fewer echoes. Lena was picking at a croissant. Victor was reading the financial section of some newspaper she didn't recognize. Do you play chess? He asked without looking up. Lena blinked. What? Chess. Do you play? I know the rules. I'm not good. Good enough. Victor folded the paper, set it aside. Library, 1 hour. Why? Because I'm tired of eating in silence and you're clearly bored out of your mind. Lena stared at him. You want to play chess with me? Unless you have something better to do. She didn't. 1 hour later, they sat across from each other at a small table near the library windows, an antique chess set between them, pieces carved from marble, black and white. Victor moved first, pawn to e4. Lena mirrored him, pawn to e5. They played without speaking. Victor was methodical, calculated, every move deliberate. Lena played defensively, trying not to lose pieces too quickly. She lasted 18 moves before he checkmated her. Again, Victor said, resetting the board. I told you I'm not good. You're better than you think. You just panic. He positioned his pieces. Don't think 5 moves ahead, think 2. Control the center, protect your queen until you're ready to sacrifice her. That's dark advice. It's practical advice. They played again. This time she lasted 23 moves. Better, Victor said. I still lost. Everyone loses the first dozen games. The question is whether you learn from it. Lena looked at the board, at the pieces scattered and captured. Is that what this is? A lesson? It's chess. It's a metaphor. Victor's mouth twitched, almost a smile. If you want it to be. They played a third game. Lena tried the strategy he'd mentioned, controlled the center, protected her queen, thought 2 moves instead of 5. She still lost, but it took him 30 moves. You're learning, Victor said. I'm losing slower. Same thing. Lena leaned back in her chair. Why are you doing this? Playing chess. Being less awful. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then, because you were right, you're not a broodmare, and treating you like one won't get either of us what we need. So this is strategy. Everything's strategy, Lena. The question is whether the strategy acknowledges you're human. She didn't know what to say to that. Victor started putting the pieces away. Same time next week? I don't have anything else scheduled. Good. He left. Lena sat alone in the library, staring at the empty chessboard, and wondered what game they were really playing. Well, the chess games became routine. Every Saturday, 1 hour, sometimes 2 if neither of them had anywhere else to be. Which, since Lena never had anywhere to be and Victor apparently decided Saturdays were sacred, meant the games stretched longer each week. She started winning occasionally. Not often, but enough that Victor stopped explaining basic strategy and started actually concentrating. You sacrificed your bishop, he said during their 7th game. I needed to open the lane. Risky. Calculated. Victor looked up from the board. Something almost like pride flickered across his face. Check. Lena moved her king. Not checkmate. Not yet. 3 moves later, he had her. Almost, he said. Almost doesn't count. Almost is how you learn the difference between courage and stupidity. Lena started laughing. Couldn't help it. Did you seriously just turn a chess game into a life lesson? You're the one who said it was a metaphor. I was being sarcastic. Sarcasm is wasted on the literal-minded. Victor reset the board. Again? Don't you have work to do? It can wait. They played until the light outside turned amber, until Mrs. Kozlov appeared in the doorway to announce dinner was ready, until Lena realized she'd spent an entire afternoon with Victor and hadn't once thought about the contract. It should have worried her. It didn't. On the 43rd day, everything changed. Lena woke to voices in the hallway. Sharp. Urgent. She sat up, disoriented. Victor's side of the bed was empty. The clock read 4:30 in the morning. She pulled on a robe and cracked open the bedroom door. Victor stood in the hallway, fully dressed, talking to 2 men in dark suits. His voice was low but hard. How many? 3 vehicles. They hit the north perimeter checkpoint, 2 guards down, non-fatal. They retreated when backup arrived. Identification? No plates, no faces, professional. Victor's jaw clenched. Marco or Dominic? Can't confirm, but the timing, Marco's wife is 32 weeks now. If they're getting desperate, double the perimeter, no one in or out without my direct authorization, and get me the security footage. Victor turned, saw Lana in the doorway. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture tensed. Inside. Now. Lena stepped back. Victor followed, closed the door behind him. What's happening? She asked. Nothing that concerns you. Someone attacked the house. Someone probed our defenses. There's a difference. Victor, get dressed, properly. Something you can move in. His voice was clipped, efficient. Stay in this room. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or Mrs. Kozlov. Do you understand? Fear spiked through her chest. You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Victor crossed to his dressing room, came back with a small black box. He opened it. Inside was a gun. Compact. Lethal. Do you know how to use this? Lena stared at the weapon. No. Safety's here. Point. Squeeze. Don't pull. Don't hesitate. And only use it if someone comes through that door who isn't me. He pressed it into her hands. The metal was cold. Heavy. Lena, look at me. She did. If something happens, Victor said quietly, if someone gets through, you don't negotiate, you don't reason, you shoot. Do you understand? This is insane. Do you understand? Yes. Say it. I shoot, I don't negotiate. Good. Victor grabbed his phone, headed for the door. I'll be back in 3 hours. Maybe less. Don't open this door. He left. Lena stood in the middle of the bedroom, holding a gun she didn't know how to use, listening to the sound of footsteps and voices fade down the hallway. Then silence. She locked the door, got dressed in jeans and a sweater, shoes she could run in if needed, sat on the edge of the bed with the gun in her lap, and waited. The minutes crawled. Every sound made her jump. The house settling, wind against the windows. Somewhere far away, a door closing. She kept the safety on because the idea of accidentally shooting herself seemed worse than whatever was happening outside. An hour passed, then 2. At the 3-hour mark, there was a knock. Lena's heart slammed into her throat. Who is it? Victor. She crossed to the door, hand shaking. How do I know it's you? A pause, then, you told me you hated me the first night we ate dinner together. I said good. You said you meant it. I said so did I. Lena unlocked the door. Victor stood in the hallway, looking exactly as he had when he left. No blood, no visible injuries. But there was something in his eyes, something sharp and cold. Are you okay? She asked. Fine. He stepped inside, closed the door, saw the gun in her hand. Did you need it? No. Good. He took it from her, locked it back in the box. The perimeter's secure. It was a test. They wanted to see how we'd respond. Who's they? Does it matter? Yes. Victor sat on the edge of the bed, rubbed his eyes. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. Actually, tired. Marco. Probably. He's panicking. His wife's due in 8 weeks. He knows he's running out of time. Lena sat next to him. Not close, but not at the opposite end of the bed either. What happens if his baby comes first? He wins. I lose. And you become a liability. The word landed like a stone. A liability, Lena repeated. You're my wife, the mother of a potential heir. If Marco takes control, he'll need to eliminate any threats to his claim. That includes you. And any child you might carry. Lena's stomach turned. He'd kill me. He'd try. And you'd, what, let him? Victor's head snapped toward her. No. Then what? Then I'd kill him first. The words were flat, factual. This isn't a game, Lena. This isn't a chess match where losing means starting over. This is blood and money and power, and the only rule is survive. So yes, if it comes down to Marco or you, I choose you. Not because I love you, not because I care, but because you're mine, and I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the first honest thing he'd ever said. Lena looked down at her hands. I don't know if I can do this. You don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Not in my world. Victor stood, started toward the dressing room. Get some sleep. We have a dinner to attend tomorrow night. Lena's head jerked up. What? A dinner. My father's hosting. Family only. You're expected. You said I couldn't leave the property. This isn't leaving. This is walking into a room full of people who want you dead and pretending you belong there. Victor pulled off his shirt, tossed it toward the hamper. Wear something elegant. Smile. Hold my hand. Play the part. And whatever you do, don't let them see you're terrified. I'm not terrified. He looked at her. Really looked. Yes, you are. And that's smart. But tomorrow night you can't show it. Tomorrow night you're Mrs. Victor Castelli. Untouchable. Confident. Completely in love with your husband. His mouth twisted. Think you can manage that? Lena's pulse hammered. Do I have a choice? No. Then I'll manage. Victor's eyes held hers for a long moment. Then he nodded and disappeared into the dressing room. Lena sat on the bed, hands still shaking, and tried to prepare for a performance she had no idea how to give. The dress arrived the next afternoon. Lena opened the garment bag and stared. Emerald green silk, off-shoulder, form-fitting, the kind of dress that costs more than most people's cars. A note was pinned to the hanger in Victor's handwriting. Green makes you look dangerous. Wear the diamonds. V. The diamonds turned out to be a necklace and earrings that probably required their own security detail. Mrs. Kozlov helped her get ready. Didn't speak. Just pinned Lena's hair into an elegant twist, applied makeup with expert precision, and stepped back to assess. "You'll do," she said. High praise, apparently. At 6 o'clock, Victor knocked. Lena opened the door. He was wearing a black suit, perfectly tailored. White shirt, no tie. He looked like money and violence wrapped in expensive fabric. His eyes swept over her. Once. Quick. "Good." "That's it? Good? Would you prefer I lie and say you look beautiful?" "I'd prefer you act like a human being with basic social skills." Victor's mouth twitched. "You look beautiful. The dress is perfect. The diamonds suit you. Better?" "Barely." "Then we're even." He offered his arm. "Ready?" "No." "Yes." They walked downstairs together. A car was waiting. Same black Mercedes, same silent driver. Victor helped her into the back seat, then slid in beside her. The door closed, and the space between them suddenly felt very small. "Rules," Victor said as the car pulled away from the estate. "I'm listening." "Don't contradict me. Don't leave my side. Don't engage with my siblings unless they speak to you first. And don't, under any circumstances, accept food or drink from anyone except the servers." Lena's stomach dropped. "You think they'd poison me?" "I think they'd do whatever gives them an advantage." "This is insane." "This is my family." Victor adjusted his cuffs. "When we arrive, I'll introduce you to my father first. He's old school, traditional. Shake his hand, don't kiss his cheek. Call him Mr. Castelli, not sir, not father, just Mr. Castelli." "What if he asks me questions?" "Answer honestly. He respects directness." "Even if the direct answer is that I married you for money?" Victor's eyes cut to hers. "Especially then." The rest of the drive passed in silence. The Castelli family estate made Victor's place look modest. It sprawled across what had to be 50 acres. Manicured lawns, fountain sculptures, a main house that looked like it belonged in a European postcard. The car stopped at the front entrance. Victor got out first, offered his hand. Lena took it, and together they walked into the wolf's den. The foyer was a cathedral of wealth. Marble floors stretched in every direction, veined with gold. A staircase curved upward like something out of a painting. Chandeliers dripped light from ceilings so high Lena had to tilt her head back to see them. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, there were people watching. Staff in formal uniforms stood at attention along the walls. Security personnel, barely disguised as guests, positioned themselves at every exit. And in the center of it all, holding court like a king on an invisible throne, stood an old man who could only be Victor's father. Salvatore Castelli was 83 and looked every year of it. Thin, gaunt, skin hanging loose on bones that seemed too fragile to support him. But his eyes were sharp, predatory, the kind of eyes that had watched empires rise and fall and decided which was which. Victor's hand tightened on Lena's. A warning, or reassurance. She couldn't tell. They crossed the foyer together. Salvatore watched them approach. Didn't smile, didn't speak, just watched. "Father," Victor said when they stopped in front of him, "this is my wife, Lena." Lena extended her hand. "Mr. Castelli." Salvatore's grip was surprisingly strong for a dying man. "So, you're the girl." "I'm a woman, actually." Victor went very still beside her. Salvatore's eyebrows rose. Then he laughed, a dry, rasping sound. "Victor said you had spine. I didn't believe him." He released her hand. "How much did he pay you?" The room went quiet. Lena felt every eye turn toward her, felt the weight of the question, the test. She could lie, play offended, pretend this was a love match. But Victor had told her his father respected directness. "He cleared a $3.2 million debt," Lena said. "Put my mother in the best rehab facility in the state, and promised me $5 million when it's over." Someone gasped. Somewhere to her left. Lena didn't look. Salvatore's smile widened. "Honest. I like that." He glanced at Victor. "She'll need it. Your siblings are circling like sharks. Let them circle. Marco's wife is due in 6 weeks." "I'm aware." "And you're here, parading a girl half your age who everyone knows you married for convenience. Salvatore's voice dropped. You're losing, Victor. Not yet. Close enough. The old man turned his attention back to Lena. Do you know what you've walked into, girl? A war, Lena said. For succession, winner takes everything. And if Victor loses, then I'm a liability who needs to disappear. Salvatore laughed again, harder this time. You told her the truth. I didn't think you had it in you. He clapped Victor on the shoulder. Maybe you're not as soft as I thought. Victor's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Dinner's in the East Wing, Salvatore said. Try not to get killed before dessert. He walked away, leaning heavily on a cane Lena hadn't noticed before. The moment he was gone, Victor leaned close to her ear. What the hell was that? You said he respects directness. I didn't say to announce our entire arrangement to the room. Everyone already knows. You said so yourself. Lena kept her voice low. Pretending otherwise makes me look stupid. At least this way they know I'm not delusional. Victor studied her face. Then, surprising her, he smiled. Actually smiled. Small. Barely there. You're either very brave or very stupid. Can it be both? In this family, absolutely. A woman's voice cut through the room. Victor, how lovely to see you. They turned. The woman approaching was beautiful in a way that felt weaponized. Mid-40s, perfect hair, perfect dress, perfect smile that didn't reach her eyes. She moved like a predator. Graceful, deliberate. Elena, Victor said flatly. His sister. Elena's gaze slid to Lena. Up, down, assessing. And this must be the child bride. How charming. Lena felt Victor tense beside her, but she spoke before he could. Lena Castelli, pleasure to meet you. I'm sure it is. Elena's smile sharpened. Tell me, dear, how does it feel to be a walking incubator? Must be terribly romantic. About as romantic as marrying for power, Lena said. But we all make choices. Elena's eyes flickered. Surprise, maybe. Or anger. Victor, you found yourself a clever one. Pity cleverness won't help when Marco's heir arrives first. Marco's an idiot, Victor said. His child will be raised by nannies and therapists. Better than being raised by a father who doesn't know how to love. Elena's smile turned cruel. Oh, wait. That's how you were raised, wasn't it? How'd that work out for you? The air between them crackled. Lena squeezed Victor's hand, felt the tension thrumming through him. We should find our seats, she said quietly. Elena laughed. Yes, run along. Wouldn't want to keep anyone waiting. She leaned closer. Word of advice, sweetheart. Watch what you eat tonight. You never know what might end up in the food. Then she was gone, gliding toward another cluster of guests. I hate her, Lena said. Get in line. They made their way to the dining room. It was massive. Table for 30, crystal, silver. Flowers arranged with military precision. Name cards at every seat. Lena found hers between Victor and a man she didn't recognize. Victor's card was at the head of the table, second only to Salvatore. She sat. The man next to her smiled. Young, maybe early 30s, dark hair, expensive cologne. You must be the new Mrs. Castelli. Lena? Marco. He offered his hand. Victor's baby brother. Lena shook it. His grip was too firm, trying too hard. Congratulations on the baby. Thank you, we're very excited. Marco's eyes lingered on her face. You're younger than I expected. You're exactly as young as I expected. Marco's smile faltered. Victor always did like them with a mouth. Did he? I wouldn't know. I'm the first. The first wife, maybe. But trust me, sweetheart, you're not the first woman to warm his bed. Lena kept her expression neutral. And yet I'm the one wearing the ring. Marco's jaw tightened. He started to respond, but Victor appeared, claiming the seat on Lena's other side. The look he gave his brother could have frozen water. Marco. Victor. Lovely party. Father's parties are never lovely. They're tactical. Victor's hand found Lena's under the table, squeezed once. How's Sophia? Still pretending she's happy? How's your wife? Still pretending she's not terrified? Lena leaned forward. I'm sitting right here. You can ask me directly. Both men looked at her. Are you terrified? Marco asked. Of you? No, you should be. Why? Because your wife's pregnant? Congratulations, that doesn't make you dangerous, just desperate. Lena picked up her water glass, took a sip. Desperation makes people sloppy. Marco's face flushed. You little... Careful. Victor's voice was soft, lethal. That's my wife you're addressing. Your wife is a... Choose your next words very carefully, Marco. The table had gone quiet. Everyone watching, waiting. Marco stood. Excuse me, I need air. He left. Lena set down her glass. Her hand was shaking. Victor noticed. His thumb brushed across her knuckles under the table. That was reckless. He started it. And you escalated it. You told me not to show fear. There's a difference between confidence and provocation. Then maybe you should have been clear about where the line is. Lena pulled her hand away. You brought me here. You told me to play the part. Don't get mad when I improvise. Victor's eyes searched hers. Then, impossibly, the corner of his mouth twitched. You're going to get us both killed. At least it'll be interesting. Dinner started. Salvatore presided from the head of the table, eating almost nothing, saying even less. Elena held court in the middle, charming guests with practiced ease. Marco returned but avoided looking at Lena. His wife Sophia sat across the table, heavily pregnant, looking miserable. Lena felt sorry for her, then remembered the woman was carrying the child that might get her killed and stopped feeling sorry. The food was incredible, course after course. Lena ate carefully, watched what Victor ate, drank only water. Noticed Elena watching her do it and smiled. Between the third and fourth courses, Salvatore stood, tapped his glass. The room fell silent. My children, he said, voice carrying despite its weakness, and their spouses. How nice to have you all under one roof. How rare. His gaze swept the table. I'm dying. You all know this. And you all know what comes next. Succession, legacy, the future of what I've built. He paused. I see some of you are ahead, others are behind. Some have made bold choices, others have made safe ones. But understand this. The clock is running. And when I'm gone, only one of you will remain standing. He sat back down. The silence stretched. Then Elena raised her glass. To family. Everyone drank, except Lena. She kept her glass on the table. Victor noticed, leaned close. Smart. I'm learning. The rest of dinner passed in strained conversation. Politics, business, carefully worded barbs disguised as compliments. Lena stayed quiet, observed, learned who deferred to whom, who hated whom, who was pretending and who had stopped caring. By the time dessert arrived, she had a headache. And then Salvatore stood again. Before you all leave, he said, I have an announcement. The room tensed. In 2 weeks, we'll be hosting the annual charity gala. Black tie. 500 guests, press. Cameras, the whole circus. His eyes found Victor. I expect you and your bride to attend together, as a united front. Victor's expression didn't change. Of course. Good. Because the entire city will be watching. And if you can't convince them this marriage is real, you can't convince me it's worth protecting. The threat hung in the air. Salvatore sat. Dinner ended. People began to leave. Slow, deliberate, like sharks circling before the kill. Elena stopped by their chairs on her way out. 2 weeks, Victor. Try not to embarrass the family. I'll do my best. Will you? Her gaze slid to Lena. Because from where I'm standing, you've brought a liability into a war. And liabilities get people killed. Elena, just friendly advice, sister to brother. She smiled. See you at the gala. She left. Marco and Sophia followed shortly after. Marco didn't look at them. Sophia did. Just once. Her eyes met Lena's across the room. And in that moment, Lena saw it. The same trapped expression she'd seen in her own mirror for weeks. They were both prisoners, just in different cages. The ride home was silent. Victor stared out the window, jaw tight, shoulders rigid. Lena wanted to ask if she'd done okay, wanted to know if she'd made things worse, but the energy radiating off him was sharp enough to cut, so she stayed quiet. They arrived at the estate, got out of the car, walked inside, up the stairs, into the bedroom. Victor closed the door, locked it, Then he crossed to the bar in the corner and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, drank it, poured another. Victor, not now. Did I screw up? He laughed, sharp, bitter. No. Then why are you acting like... Because you were perfect. Victor turned to face her. You were confident, sharp, unflinching. You went toe-to-toe with Marco and Elena and didn't blink. And my father liked you. Do you understand how rare that is? Lena blinked. So what's the problem? The problem is that now they know you're not a prop. You're a player, and players get targeted. Victor set down his glass. I brought you into this thinking you'd be invisible. Background noise, a means to an end. But you just painted a target on your back, Lena, and I can't unpaint it. I did what you told me to do. I know. Then stop acting like I did something wrong. I'm not! Victor's voice rose. Actually rose. I'm angry because I underestimated you. I thought you'd fold under pressure. I thought you'd need protecting, but you don't. You held your own. And now I have to figure out how to keep you alive when everyone in that room tonight decided you're a threat. Lena's pulse hammered. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. Victor ran a hand through his hair. But here we are. The silence stretched between them. Then Lena crossed the room, stopped in front of him, close enough to see the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion in his eyes. So what do? We prepare. For what? The gala. 2 weeks. 500 witnesses. Every news outlet in the city. Victor's gaze locked on hers. And we convince everyone watching that we're not just married. We're in love. How are we supposed to do that? We practice. Lena's breath caught. Practice what? Victor's hand came up, brushed her cheek. His touch was warm, deliberate. This. Being comfortable with each other. Looking like we can't keep our hands apart. His thumb traced her jawline. Can you do that? Her skin was on fire. I don't know. Try. Lena lifted her hand, hesitated, then placed it against his chest, felt his heartbeat, steady, strong. Like this? Like you mean it. She slid her hand up, over his shoulder, into his hair. His eyes darkened. Better? Better. Victor's other hand found her waist, drew her closer. At the gala, we'll dance, we'll touch. We'll look at each other like no one else exists. Can you sell that? Can you? I'm very good at lying, Lena. This isn't lying. This is acting. Same skill set. His forehead dropped to hers. 2 weeks. We make them believe, and maybe we survive long enough for this to end. Lena closed her eyes, felt his breath on her skin, felt the lines blurring between performance and reality. What if I can't? You can. You already did tonight. That was different. That was anger. This is... She stopped, couldn't finish. This is what? Victor pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. Intimate. Something shifted in his expression. Yes. I don't know if I can fake that. Then don't fake it. Lena's heart stuttered. What? Victor's hand tightened on her waist. You want this to look real? Make it real. Not the love, not the future, but the moment, the touch, the proximity. Stop fighting what's already happening. Nothing's happening. Liar. His voice dropped. You felt it at dinner, when I held your hand, when I defended you, when Marco pushed and you pushed back and I wanted to put him through the table for talking to you like that. That's just possessiveness, yes? Protectiveness, also yes. But it's real, Lena. And if you stop pretending it isn't, this gets a hell of a lot easier. Lena's throat was tight. You said you'd never love me. I won't. Then what is this? Survival. Victor's eyes held hers. I protect what's mine. You're mine. That's not love, that's fact. And if we lean into that, if we stop fighting the reality of what this is, we might actually pull this off. Lena should have pulled away, should have reminded him this was temporary, a contract, an arrangement with an expiration date. But his hand was warm on her waist, and his eyes were dark. And for the first time since signing her name on that marriage license, she didn't feel alone. Okay, she whispered. Okay? We make it real. The moments, the touches, the performance. She swallowed. But when this is over, you walk away. Nothing changes. Promise? Victor's jaw tightened. I promise. Lena nodded, stepped back. His hand fell away from her waist. The loss of contact felt wrong. She ignored it. I'm going to get changed. Lena. She stopped at the dressing room door. You were incredible tonight, Victor said quietly. I need you to know that. Something warm unfurled in her chest. Dangerous. Unwelcome. Thank you. She disappeared into the dressing room before he could see her smile. The next 2 weeks were a different kind of prison. Victor stopped leaving early, started eating breakfast with her, sitting next to her in the library, teaching her things about his world that she hadn't asked to learn, but absorbed anyway because information was currency and currency was power. They practiced, touching, standing close, the casual intimacy of a married couple, his hand on the small of her back, her fingers threading through his, the way he'd pull out her chair or she'd adjust his collar before dinner. Small things, things that shouldn't have mattered, but every touch left a mark. Every moment blurred the line a little more. One night, they were in the library. Chess game abandoned. Lena was reading. Victor was working on his laptop. Rain hammered against the windows. Tell me something true, Lena said. Victor looked up. What? Something true. About you, not the business, not the family. Just you. He was quiet for a long moment. Why? Because if I'm going to convince 500 people I'm in love with you, I should probably know more than the fact that you like your coffee black and hate being interrupted before 9 a.m. Victor closed his laptop. What do you want to know? Anything real. He thought about it. Then, I used to play piano. Lena blinked. Seriously? My mother insisted, before she died, classical training, 8 years of lessons. His mouth twisted. I was good. Really good. People said I could have gone professional if I wanted. What stopped you? My father. He said music was a weakness, that men in our world couldn't afford softness. Victor's gaze went distant. I haven't touched a piano in 30 years. Lena set down her book. Do you miss it? Every day. The honesty in his voice cracked something open in her chest. There's a piano in the East Wing. I saw it when I was exploring. It hasn't been tuned in decades, so tune it. Lena, you're the one who told me not to disappear into this house. Maybe you should take your own advice. She stood. Play for me. Now? Why not? Victor stared at her like she'd suggested something absurd. Then he stood. Fine, but don't expect anything beautiful. They walked to the East Wing together. The piano sat in a room full of dust and forgotten furniture. A grand, black lacquer, keys yellowed with age. Victor sat on the bench. Lena stood behind him. He lifted the fallboard, touched the keys, hesitated. Then he played. It was Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major. And despite the out-of-tune notes, despite the years of neglect, it was the most beautiful thing Lena had ever heard. She watched his hands move, watched his shoulders relax, watched 30 years of armor fall away until the man playing wasn't Victor Castelli, Mafia Heir, but someone younger, someone who'd been buried under expectations and violence and loss. When the last note faded, silence filled the room. That was beautiful, Lena whispered. Victor's hand stayed on the keys. I'd forgotten what it felt like. What? Being something other than what my father made me. Lena's chest ached. She moved without thinking, sat next to him on the bench, close enough that their shoulders touched. You're more than that. You know that, right? Victor turned his head. Their faces were inches apart. Am I? Yes. His eyes dropped to her mouth, lingered. Lena. What? If we keep doing this, if we keep getting closer, it's going to make the end harder. I know. And you're okay with that? No. Yes. Victor's hand came up, cupped her face. His thumb brushed her lower lip. You're a terrible liar. So are you. I'm an excellent liar. It's the truth I'm bad at. Lena's breath hitched. Then tell me something true. You terrify me. The words hung between them. Why? Lena whispered. Because you make me want things I swore I'd never want again. His forehead touched hers. And I can't afford that. Not now. Not ever. Lena closed her eyes. So what do? We keep pretending. We make them believe. And when it's over, we walk away before this becomes something neither of us can survive. Okay. But neither of them moved. And when Victor kissed her, soft, careful, like she was something fragile, Lena didn't pull away. She kissed him back. And the lie they were living became a little more dangerous, a little more real. They didn't talk about the kiss. Not the next morning when Victor left before sunrise. Not during their chess game that Saturday when his hand lingered on hers as he corrected her knight placement. Not during dinner when the silence between them felt heavier, charged with something neither of them had words for. But it changed things anyway. The touches became easier, more natural. His hand found her waist without thinking. Her fingers brushed his shoulder when she passed behind his chair. They started sleeping closer. No more wall of pillows. Just two people in a bed too large for strangers, but somehow too small for what they were becoming. 3 days before the gala, Lena woke to find Victor already dressed, standing at the window. What time is it? She asked, voice rough with sleep. 5:30. Why are you up? Couldn't sleep. He didn't turn around. Marco's wife went into labor last night. Lena sat up. What? Early. 34 weeks. They're at the hospital now. Victor's voice was flat, controlled. If the baby survives, if it's healthy, I lose. The words settled over the room like frost. Lena pushed back the covers, crossed to where he stood. You don't know that yet. I know the odds. Odds aren't guarantees. Victor finally looked at her. His face was carved from stone. I've spent 2 months preparing for this. Built contingencies. Moved assets, made plans. And it might all be over before the gala even happens. Then we wait. See what happens. And if Marco wins, Lena's chest tightened. Then we deal with it. There's no dealing with it, Lena. If he takes succession, you become a target. The contract becomes void. Everything we've done is for nothing. Not nothing. She took his hand, squeezed. My mother's sober, safe. That doesn't change. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're scared. So am I. But standing here catastrophizing doesn't help. Lena stepped closer. How long before you know? Could be hours. Could be days. Premature births are unpredictable. Then we go about our day. We prepare for the gala like nothing's changed. And when you get word, we figure out our next move. Victor stared at her. You're being remarkably calm about this. One of us has to be. His mouth twitched. Almost a smile. When did you get so steady? About the time you started falling apart. That earned a real smile. Small, brief, but real. I'm not falling apart. You're spiraling. There's a difference, but it's close. Lena tugged his hand. Come back to bed. You won't get any answers standing at the window. I don't think I can sleep. Then lie down and worry horizontally. At least that way I can keep an eye on you. Victor let her lead him back to the bed. They lay down, facing each other. His eyes were dark, exhausted. I should have picked someone else. For what? This. All of it. Someone harder, someone who wouldn't have made me... He stopped. Made you what? Care. Lena's breath caught. Victor. I know. It's not supposed to matter. You're supposed to be a means to an end. But somewhere between the chess games and your terrible stubbornness, it started mattering. And I don't know how to unmatter it. Her throat felt tight. Maybe you're not supposed to. That's not helpful. It's honest. Victor reached out, traced her jawline with his thumb. When this is over, when you leave, I'm not going to be okay. Yes, you will. How do you know? Because you're Victor Castelli. You survive everything. Lena caught his hand, held it against her cheek. That's what you do. What if I don't want to just survive anymore? The question hung between them like a confession. Lena didn't have an answer, so she did the only thing she could. She closed the distance between them and kissed him. Soft, slow, The kind of kiss that wasn't about performance or strategy or convincing anyone of anything, just two people in the dark, holding on to something that had an expiration date. When they pulled apart, Victor's forehead rested against hers. This is a mistake. Probably. We should stop. We should. Neither of them moved. The call came at noon. Victor's phone rang during lunch. He looked at the screen. His whole body went rigid. It's my father. Lena set down her fork. Victor answered. Yes. Pause. When? Another pause. And? Silence stretched. Victor's jaw clenched. Understood. He hung up. What happened? Lena asked. The baby's alive. Boy. 4 pounds. In the NICU. Her stomach dropped. So Marco might win, if the baby stabilizes, if there are no complications. Victor stood, started pacing. They're calling it touch and go. Could survive. Could die. We won't know for 72 hours. What do? We wait. And we go to that gala and smile like nothing's changed. Victor, I'm not giving up yet. He stopped pacing, looked at her. This isn't over until my father declares a winner, and he won't do that until he's certain the child will survive. So we have time. Not much, but some. Lena stood, crossed to him. Then we make it count. The next 2 days were a strange kind of suspended reality. Victor worked constantly, phone calls, meetings, conversations in rooms Lena wasn't allowed to enter. He looked exhausted, wired, like a man running on caffeine and determination. Lena tried to help, stayed out of his way when he needed space, sat with him when he needed company, played chess when he needed distraction, lost every game but kept playing anyway because it was the only thing that seemed to steady him. The night before the gala, they had dinner in silence. Halfway through, Victor set down his fork. I need to tell you something. Lena looked up. What? If Marco's child survives, if I lose succession, I'm not letting you go quietly. What does that mean? It means I'll still honor the contract. Your mother's debt stays cleared. You get your payout. But I'm putting you in protective custody until I can guarantee Marco won't come after you. For how long? As long as it takes. Lena's chest tightened. That could be months, years. Better alive in hiding than dead in the open. You can't just lock me away. I can and I will. Victor's voice was hard, final. You think I'm letting you walk out of here unprotected? You think I'm naive enough to believe Marco will honor any agreement once he has power? He'll kill you, Lena. Not immediately, not obviously, but he'll do it, and I won't let that happen. So what, I'm a prisoner forever? You're alive forever. There's a difference. Lena pushed back from the table. This is insane. This is reality. Victor stood. You don't get to die because I failed. That's not how this ends. You don't get to decide how my life ends. Actually, according to the contract, I do. Until you're released from obligation, I'm responsible for your safety. That was the deal. Lena wanted to scream, wanted to throw something. I hate you. No, you don't. I do right now. Victor crossed to her, took her face in his hands. Hate me all you want, but you're surviving this. Even if I don't. The words hit like ice water. What does that mean? It means if Marco wins, I become a threat, and threats get eliminated. Victor, I'm not stupid, Lena. I know how this works. I've been preparing for it my entire life. If I lose, I have maybe 6 months before something unfortunate happens. A car accident, a heart attack, some very convenient tragedy. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. But you? You get to live. That's not negotiable. Tears burned behind her eyes. Stop talking like you're already dead. I'm talking like someone who understands the stakes. Then fight harder. I am fighting. I've been fighting since the day we met. But some battles can't be won, Lena. And if this is one of them, I need to know you're protected. I need you to stop giving up. I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic. Realistic is another word for defeated. Lena pulled away from his hands. You told me you protect what's yours, so protect yourself. Because if you die, I don't get to move on. I don't get to live some happy life with your money and my freedom. I spend the rest of my existence knowing you died because I wasn't enough of a reason to keep fighting. Victor stared at her. You think I'm not fighting for you? I think you're fighting for the contract, for obligation, for pride, but not for this. She pressed her hand against his chest, over his heart. Not for what this actually became. What did it become? Lena's voice cracked. You tell me. The silence stretched, heavy, painful. Then Victor pulled her against him, held her so tight she could barely breathe. I don't know what this is, he said into her hair, but I know I didn't plan it. I know it scares the hell out of me, and I know that if something happens to you because of my world, because of my family, I'll burn everything to the ground. Lena's arms came around him. Then don't die. I'll do my best. Promise me. Lena, promise me, Victor. He pulled back, met her eyes. I promise I'll fight like hell to survive. That's the best I can give you. It wasn't enough. But it was all she had. The morning of the gala, Mrs. Kozlov woke Lena at 7. The stylist will be here in an hour, she said. Dress fitting at 9, hair and makeup at 11. You're expected to be ready by 6. Lena sat up. Where's Victor? Already gone. He'll meet you at the venue. Something cold settled in her stomach. He left without saying goodbye? He left instructions. Mrs. Kozlov held out an envelope. He said you'd understand. Lena took it, waited until the older woman left, then opened it. Inside was a note in Victor's handwriting and a small velvet box. The note read, Wear this tonight. It belonged to my mother. No one else has ever touched it. V. Lena opened the box. A ring, white gold, single diamond, simple, elegant, the kind of ring someone gave when they meant it. Her hand shook as she slipped it onto her right hand. It fit perfectly. The day passed in a blur of preparation. The stylist. The dress. Midnight blue, fitted, with a slit that ran dangerously high. The shoes that added 4 inches. The jewelry that probably required insurance. Hair swept up. Makeup dramatic. When Lena finally looked in the mirror, she didn't recognize herself. She looked like someone who belonged in Victor's world. The car arrived at 5:30. No Victor. Just the driver and 2 security personnel who sat in the front seat and didn't speak. The venue was downtown. A historic hotel that had been transformed into something out of a dream. Lights, flowers, red carpet, photographers everywhere. Lena's stomach twisted as the car pulled up. The door opened. She stepped out. Cameras flashed. Questions shouted. She kept her head up, smiled, walked toward the entrance like she'd done this 1,000 times. Inside was even more overwhelming. Chandeliers, orchestra, 500 people in formal wear, all watching, all judging. Lena scanned the crowd. No Victor. Panic started to creep in. Then a hand touched her lower back. She turned. Victor stood beside her, wearing a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a film. His eyes swept over her, once, thoroughly. You look stunning. You're late. I'm exactly on time. You're early. His hand slid to her waist, pulled her close. Nervous? Terrified. Good. Use it. He leaned down, pressed a kiss to her temple. Stay close. Smile. And remember, everyone here wants something from us. Don't give them anything real. Accept each other. Victor's eyes met hers. Accept each other. They walked into the ballroom together. The next hour was a performance. Victor introduced her to people whose names she forgot immediately. Business associates. Politicians. Socialites who looked at her like she was a curiosity, a novelty. The young wife of the Mafia Heir. How quaint. Lena smiled, shook hands, made small talk, and felt Victor's hand never leave her waist. Then Elena appeared. Victor, Lena, how lovely you both look. Her smile was venom. Have you heard the news about Marco's baby? Victor's hand tightened on Lena's waist. What news? He's stabilizing. Doctors are cautiously optimistic. Elena's eyes glittered. Looks like you might be out of the running after all. What a shame. The race isn't over until Father declares a winner, Victor said evenly. True. But the finish line is getting closer, and you're falling behind. She turned to Lena. How does it feel, dear, knowing you might have married into the losing side? How does it feel being 47 and still desperate for Daddy's approval? Lena asked sweetly. Elena's smile froze. Victor coughed, possibly covering a laugh. Careful, little girl. Elena said quietly. You're making enemies you can't afford. Funny, I was going to say the same to you. Elena's eyes narrowed. Then she walked away without another word. Victor leaned close to Lena's ear. You're going to get us killed. At least we'll go out with style. He laughed. Actually laughed. Come on, we need to dance before my father arrives. The orchestra was playing something slow, romantic. Victor led her onto the dance floor. His hand found hers. His other hand settled on her waist. They moved together like they'd been doing this for years. You're better at this than I expected, Lena said. I had lessons. Part of the training. Training for what? Being the perfect heir, dancing, etiquette. How to kill someone with a dessert fork. His eyes crinkled. The usual, Lena laughed. You're ridiculous. And you're beautiful. The words came out soft, unguarded. Her breath caught. Victor. I know, we're pretending, but for the record, it's not pretend when I say that. He spun her, pulled her back in closer than before. You walked into this gala looking like you owned it, like you weren't scared at all. I was terrified. No one could tell. That's the difference between you now and you 2 months ago. You've learned to weaponize fear. Is that a compliment? It's an observation, and yes. Victor's hand slid up her back. I'm proud of you. Tears pricked her eyes. Stop. Why? Because you're making this harder. Good. They danced through 2 more songs, lost in each other. The room faded. The people watching disappeared. It was just them, moving together, breathing together. Then the music stopped. Salvatore Castelli stood at the edge of the dance floor, leaning on his cane, watching them with those sharp predator eyes. Victor's hand tightened on Lena's. Here we go. They approached. Father, Victor said. Victor. Lena. Salvatore's gaze swept over them. You look happy. We are, Lena said before Victor could answer. Are you? Salvatore smiled, thin, knowing. Or are you very good actors? Does it matter? Victor asked. To me? Yes. Because I need to know if this marriage is real or just another strategic move. It's both, Lena said. Salvatore's eyebrows rose. Explain. It started as strategy. I needed money. Victor needed an heir. Simple transaction. But somewhere along the way it became something else. Something neither of us planned. Lena's hand found Victor's, squeezed. So yes, we're good actors. We have to be. But what we're acting out, that part's real. Salvatore studied her face. Then Victor's. The silence stretched. Marco's son is stabilizing, he finally said. Victor's jaw clenched. I know. But he's not out of danger, could still go either way. Salvatore's eyes locked on his son. You understand what that means? I understand I still have a chance. A small one. I've worked with less. Salvatore's smile widened. Yes, you have. He looked at Lena. You picked a fighter. Good instincts. I didn't pick him. I got cornered into him. But I'm learning to appreciate the difference between being trapped and being chosen. And which is it? Lena looked at Victor, saw the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion in his eyes, the way he was still fighting even though the odds were crushing. Both, still both. But lately the second one feels more true. Salvatore laughed. You're wasted on Victor. You should have married me. You're 30 years too late and dying. Details. Victor stepped forward. Father, with respect, save it. Salvatore waved him off. I'm not here to critique your marriage. I'm here to tell you the stakes just got higher. If Marco's son survives the next 48 hours, succession is his. If the child dies, the race continues. But either way, this family is about to tear itself apart, and I need to know you're ready for that. I've been ready for 30 years. Have you? Salvatore's gaze was sharp. Because ready means being willing to burn it all down to protect what's yours. And I'm not sure you have that in you anymore, not after her. He gestured to Lena. Victor's voice went cold. Don't. Don't what? Point out that you've gone soft? That you're distracted? That for the first time in your life you have something you actually care about losing? Father, I'm not criticizing. I'm warning you. Salvatore stepped closer. They'll use her against you. Marco, Elena, Dominic. All of them. They'll threaten her, hurt her, take her from you. And when they do, you'll have a choice. Save her or save the Empire. You can't do both. The words hung in the air like poison. Then I pick her, Victor said quietly. The room went silent. Everyone close enough to hear stopped pretending not to listen. Salvatore stared at his son. You'd throw away everything I built? Everything you've worked for a girl you've known 3 months? She's my wife. She's a contract. She's mine. Victor's voice didn't rise, didn't waver. And I don't abandon what's mine, not for you, not for the Empire, not for anything. Salvatore's expression shifted, something that might have been respect. Or disappointment. Hard to tell. Then you're a fool. Maybe. But I'm a fool who can sleep at night. Not for long. Not if you lose. Salvatore turned to walk away. Stopped. Looked back. Marco's child is in the NICU, room 412. If something were to happen, if someone were to ensure the child didn't survive, the race would continue. Ice flooded Lena's veins. Victor went very still. What are you saying? I'm saying war has rules, and sometimes the rules allow for unfortunate accidents. Salvatore's smile was cruel. I'm not suggesting anything, just stating facts. He walked away. Victor stood frozen, fists clenched, jaw tight. Lena grabbed his arm. Victor, tell me you're not considering. I'm not. His voice was rough. I won't. Not that. Never that. Your father just gave you permission to kill a baby. I know what he did. And? Victor finally looked at her. And I told you, I'm not my father. I don't hurt children. I don't kill innocents. Even if it costs me everything. Relief crashed through her. Okay. Okay. So what do we do? Victor took her hand. We wait. We hope Marco's son survives because I'd rather lose honorably than win like that. And if I lose, we execute the contingency plan. The one where you hide me forever? The one where you stay alive? Yes. Lena wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Fine. But Victor... What? After this is over, after we know what happens, I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll let me choose. Not just survival, but what kind of life I want after. Even if that life includes you. Victor's breath caught. Lena, promise me. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. I promise. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. They danced, they smiled, they played the perfect couple, and when the photographer asked them to kiss for a photo, Victor didn't hesitate. He kissed her like he meant it, like the cameras weren't there, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. And when they pulled apart, Lena knew. They'd stopped pretending, and whatever came next was going to hurt in ways neither of them were prepared for. The call came at 3 a.m. Lena woke to Victor sitting on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to his ear, shoulders rigid in the darkness. She could hear a voice on the other end, urgent, clipped. Victor said nothing, just listened, then ended the call without a word. What happened? Lena asked, sitting up. Victor didn't turn around. Marco's son died an hour ago. Respiratory failure. They tried everything. It wasn't enough. The word should have brought relief. Instead, they sat heavy in the room. A child was dead, a tiny life that never had a chance. And somewhere, Marco and his wife were drowning in grief. I'm sorry, Lena whispered. Don't be. I'm not. Victor's voice was flat, empty. That child's death just saved both our lives. And I'm supposed to feel grateful for that. What kind of person does that make me? Lena moved closer, put her hand on his back. A survivor. A monster. No. A monster would have caused it. You just benefited from tragedy. There's a difference. Victor finally looked at her. His eyes were hollow. Is there? She didn't have an answer. He stood, started pacing. My father will announce the continuation of succession within hours. Marco will be devastated, useless. Elena and Dominic will double their efforts, and I'll still be fighting for something I'm not even sure I want anymore. Then stop fighting. Victor stopped walking. What? Stop fighting. Walk away. We have money. resources. We could disappear. Start over somewhere your family can't reach. That's not how this works. Why not? Because walking away doesn't mean they stop coming. It means I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. You spend the rest of yours in hiding. That's not freedom, Lena. That's a different kind of prison. Then what do we do? Victor crossed back to her, knelt in front of where she sat on the bed, took her hands. We finish this. I win succession. I take control, and then I burn down every piece of my father's empire that's built on blood and replace it with something that isn't. You can't change what the family is. I can change what it becomes. His grip tightened, and I can make sure no one else gets trapped the way we did, the way my mother did, the way every woman who's ever been traded like currency in this family has been trapped. Lena's chest ached. That's a big promise. I know. What if you can't keep it? Then I die trying, but at least I die doing something that matters. She pulled him up, into her arms, held him while the weight of everything pressed down. You're not dying, not if I have anything to say about it. You don't get a vote. Watch me. Victor laughed, soft, tired. When did you get so stubborn? About the time you stopped being just my captor and started being my partner. He pulled back, met her eyes. Is that what we are? I don't know what we are, but it's more than the contract, and it's enough to fight for. Victor kissed her. Slow, deep, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise neither of them knew how to keep. When they broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. If I win this, if I take control, things are going to get worse before they get better. How much worse? Elena won't accept defeat. Dominic will fight dirty. My father will probably disown me for changing things he spent 50 years building, and there's a very real chance someone tries to kill me before I can consolidate power. Lena's stomach twisted. Then we make sure you survive. We? You don't get to do this alone anymore. I'm in this. For better or worse. That's what the vows said, right? Those vows were part of a contract. And now they're real. Lena cupped his face. So stop trying to protect me by pushing me away. It won't work. I'm staying, whether you like it or not. Victor's eyes searched hers. Then he nodded. Okay. Okay? You're in, but that means you follow my lead. You trust my security team. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments, no hesitation. Deal. They stayed like that until the sun came up, holding each other, preparing for the war that was coming. The announcement came at noon. Salvatore held a press conference. Cameras everywhere. He stood at a podium looking more dead than alive and announced that succession remained undecided, that the race would continue until a clear winner emerged, that the Castelli family's future hung in the balance. The media went insane. Elena released a statement within the hour, expressed condolences for Marco's loss, reminded everyone that she was the most qualified candidate. That sentiment shouldn't cloud judgment. Dominic held his own press conference, said succession should be decided by competence, not biology. Marco said nothing, just buried his son. Lena watched it all from the library. Victor was locked in his office. Phone calls, strategy sessions, planning the next move. She wanted to help, wanted to be useful. But this part, the brutal political chess of it all, was beyond her. So she did the only thing she could. She waited. 3 days after the announcement, the bomb came. Not literally, though that might have been cleaner. A reporter from a major newspaper published an exposé. Anonymous sources. Detailed accounts. Evidence that Victor had used illegal means to secure business contracts, that he'd laundered money through offshore accounts, that his hands were as dirty as his father's, maybe worse. It was all true. And it was all going to destroy him. Lena found him in his office, staring at his laptop screen, face carved from ice. Victor. He didn't look up. Elena leaked it. Had to be. She's the only one with access to those records. What do we do? Nothing. There's nothing to do. The authorities will investigate. They'll find evidence. I'll probably face charges. And Elena will swoop in, claim she's the clean candidate, and take succession while I'm drowning in legal fees. So we fight back. We expose her. She's too careful. Whatever dirt she has buried, it's buried deep. Victor finally looked at her. I'm done, Lena. No. Yes. This is over. I lost. You're giving up? I'm being realistic. Lena crossed the room, grabbed his face with both hands, forced him to look at her. Listen to me. You are not done. You are not lost, and you are definitely not giving up. Lena, shut up! I'm talking! Her voice shook. You told me you wanted to change things, to burn down the empire and build something better. You think you can do that by rolling over the first time someone punches back? This isn't a punch. This is a knockout. Only if you stay down. Lena's eyes burned into his. So get up. Find another angle. Fight dirty if you have to, but don't you dare quit on me now. Victor stared at her. Something flickered in his eyes. Not hope. Not yet. But something close. What do you suggest? I suggest we stop playing their game and start playing ours. Meaning? Meaning we don't deny the charges. We own them. Victor blinked. That's insane. Is it? Everyone in your world has blood on their hands. Everyone's dirty. The difference is most of them pretend they're not. What if you stopped pretending? What if you walked in front of the cameras and said, yes, I did those things, and here's why, and here's what I'm going to do to make it right? That's career suicide. Or it's honesty, which in your world might actually be revolutionary. Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing, really laughing. You want me to confess to crimes on national television. I want you to control the narrative before it controls you. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Is it working? Victor pulled her into his lap, kissed her hard. You're either a genius or completely insane. Again, both can be true. If I do this, if I go public, there's no going back. I'll have targets on every side. Law enforcement, my family, everyone. Then we make sure you're bulletproof before you pull the trigger. Victor's hands framed her face. We. You're really not leaving, are you? Not a chance. He kissed her again, softer this time. Okay, we do it your way. But we need leverage, something that protects us when the fallout hits. What kind of leverage? Victor's eyes went sharp, calculating. The kind that ensures if I go down, I take everyone else with me. The next week was a blur of preparation. Victor reached out to contacts, lawyers, accountants, people who knew where bodies were buried. He compiled evidence, not just on himself, on everyone. Elena, Dominic, his father, every illegal deal, every dirty transaction, every skeleton in every closet, and he prepared to detonate it all. The press conference was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Maximum coverage. Victor hired the best PR firm in the city. Not to spin the story, just to make sure it reached everyone. The morning of, Lena woke to find Victor already dressed. Suit, tie, the armor of a man going to war. Ready? She asked. No, but we're doing it anyway. He held out his hand. Come with me. To the press conference? To all of it. I need you there. Victor, if I'm there, it changes the optics. Makes this about us instead of it is about us. It's about choosing something real over something rotten. His eyes held hers. Please. Lena took his hand. They drove to the venue together, a hotel conference room, packed, reporters, cameras, flashbulbs. Lena sat in the front row. Victor stood at the podium, and then he spoke. My name is Victor Castelli. I'm the oldest son of Salvatore Castelli, and for the past 30 years I've been complicit in building an empire on corruption, violence, and exploitation. The room went silent. Victor didn't flinch, didn't look away from the cameras. I've laundered money. I've bribed officials. I've used illegal means to secure contracts that gave my family an unfair advantage. I've done things that kept me awake at night and made me someone I didn't recognize in the mirror. A reporter started to shout a question. Victor held up a hand. I'm not finished. He paused. I'm telling you this because I'm done pretending. I'm done being part of a system that eats people alive and spits out money. And I'm done watching my family destroy lives in the name of legacy. He pulled out a USB drive, held it up. On this drive is evidence. Every illegal transaction, every dirty deal, not just mine, everyone's, my father, my siblings, associates, partners, all of it. Victor's voice was steady, cold. I'm releasing this to federal authorities immediately after this press conference, and I'm cooperating fully with any investigation that follows. The room exploded, shouting, questions, chaos. Victor ignored it. His eyes found Lena's. I'm doing this because someone taught me that surviving isn't the same as living, that being trapped in a system doesn't mean you can't break it, and that the only way to change something rotten is to burn it down and start over. He stepped away from the podium. Security surrounded him immediately, ushered him toward a side exit. Lena pushed through the crowd, reached him just as they made it outside. "You did it," she said. "I ended my life as I knew it." "You started a new one." Victor pulled her close. "If I survive the next 48 hours. You will. We will." They climbed into the car, drove back to the estate, and waited for the fallout. It came fast. Federal agents arrived that evening, warrants, questions. Victor handed over everything, cooperated completely. They left with boxes of evidence and a promise he'd be called to testify. His father disowned him by midnight, a formal statement. Victor Castelli was no longer part of the family, no longer an heir, no longer anything. Elena and Dominic lawyered up within hours. Marco stayed silent, and Lena stayed by Victor's side. The investigation took 3 months. 3 months of depositions. Testimony. Media coverage that painted Victor as either a hero or a traitor, depending on who was writing. 3 months of living in the estate with security doubled and every shadow potentially dangerous. But something strange happened during those months. People started listening, not just to the crimes, to the why, to the corruption that ran so deep it had become normal, to the system that trapped people and called it business. Victor became something unexpected, a symbol of someone who'd had everything and chosen to burn it down rather than keep pretending it was clean. And when the charges came down, when Elena and Dominic and half a dozen associates were arrested, when Salvatore was indicted and placed under house arrest, Victor took a plea deal, community service, restitution, probation, but no jail time. The prosecutor called him a cooperating witness, said his testimony had brought down an organization that had operated with impunity for decades. Victor called it survival. Lena called it a second chance. 6 months after the press conference, they stood in the ruins of the Castelli estate, not Victor's property, the family compound, Salvatore's empire. It was being liquidated, assets seized, property sold, everything dismantled piece by piece. "How does it feel?" Lena asked. Victor looked at the place that had defined his entire existence. Empty, but also light. "What do we do now?" "Whatever we want." He turned to her. "The contract's void. Has been since I stopped being an heir. You're free to go, take the money, start over." Lena's heart clenched. "Is that what you want?" "I want you to have a choice. Not an obligation, not a trap, a real choice. And if I choose to stay, if..." Victor's breath caught, "then I'd spend the rest of my life making sure you never regretted it." Lena stepped closer. "I'm not leaving." "Lena, I'm not leaving. Not because of the contract. Not because I'm trapped. Because somewhere between the chess games and the press conferences and the nights you held me when I was scared, I stopped wanting to leave." Her hand found his. "You asked me what we are. I think we're people who found each other in the worst circumstances and decided to build something better, together." Victor pulled her into his arms, held her like she was the only solid thing in a world that had collapsed. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." He laughed, actually laughed. "What do we do now?" "We start over, build something new, something that isn't built on violence or corruption or fear." "That's ambitious." "You wanted to change the empire. I'm saying change yourself instead. Become something better than what you were raised to be." Victor looked down at her. "And you'll help?" "Every step. Even when it's hard. Especially then." He kissed her, soft, sure. The kind of kiss that wasn't about performance or strategy, just two people choosing each other when they didn't have to. When they pulled apart, Lena smiled. "So what's first?" "First, we get married. Actually married. Not a contract. Not an arrangement. The real thing. We're already married." That was business. I want it to be real. Lena's eyes burned. "Are you proposing?" I'm promising that if you'll have me, if you'll take a man who's broken and rebuilding and nowhere near perfect, I'll spend the rest of my life earning the choice you made. Yes. Yes? Yes, you idiot. Obviously, yes. Victor swept her up, spun her around, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked young, unburdened, free. They got married 2 weeks later. Small ceremony. No press, no cameras. Just them and a judge and Mrs. Kozlov as a witness. Lena wore a simple white dress. Victor wore a suit. They said vows they wrote themselves, promised things that were real and hard and worth fighting for. And when the judge pronounced them married, when Victor kissed her like she was the only thing that mattered, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in a year. Hope. The next phase was harder. Victor used what money he had left to start a foundation. Resources for people trapped in situations like Lena's. Debt counseling, legal aid, safe housing, ways out for people who thought they had none. Lena worked alongside him, used her accounting background to manage the finances, to make sure every dollar went where it was supposed to. They were building something, slowly, imperfectly, but building nonetheless. And then 3 months after the second wedding, Lena missed her period. She took 3 tests, all positive. She sat on the bathroom floor staring at the little plus signs and felt her world tilt. A baby. The thing the contract had demanded. The thing that had started all of this. Except now it wasn't part of a contract. It was a choice. A future. Something real. She found Victor in his office. He looked up when she entered. Hey, everything okay? Lena held up the test. Victor went very still. Is that positive? All 3 of them. He stood, crossed to her, took the test from her hands with shaking fingers. You're pregnant. Yeah. We're having a baby. Yeah. Victor looked at her, then at the test, then back at her. I'm going to be a father. A real one. Not the contract kind. The kind who shows up and stays and doesn't treat kids like pawns. His eyes filled, actually filled with tears. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out together. Victor pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she could barely breathe. I'm terrified. Me too. What if I screw this up? Then we fix it. That's what people do. Lena pulled back, looked at him. You're not your father, Victor. You're choosing to be different, and that choice matters more than anything else. You really believe that? I know that, because I watched you burn down everything you knew to build something better. And if you can do that, you can be the father this kid deserves. Victor pressed his forehead to hers. I love you. The words hung in the air, the first time he'd said them out loud. Lena smiled through tears. I love you too. Even though I'm a mess? Especially because you're a mess. Means you're human. And humans are allowed to screw up and learn and try again. That's a very optimistic view of humanity. I learned it from someone who chose redemption over empire, so blame yourself. Victor laughed, kissed her. We're really doing this. We really are. Building a life, raising a kid, the whole thing. The whole thing. Together. Together. The baby came 7 months later. A girl, healthy, perfect in all the ways that mattered, and imperfect in all the ways that made her real. They named her Anna, after Victor's mother. Lena held her in the hospital room, exhausted and overwhelmed and more in love than she'd known was possible. Victor sat beside the bed, staring at his daughter like she was the only miracle he'd ever witnessed. She's so small, he said. She'll grow. What if I drop her? You won't. What if she hates me? She won't. Lena looked at him. You're her father. You're going to mess up. You're going to make mistakes. But you're also going to love her. And that matters more than being perfect. Victor reached out, touched Anna's tiny hand. She gripped his finger with surprising strength. Hi, sweetheart. I'm your dad, and I promise I'm going to do better than mine did. Lena's throat tightened. That's a good start. They stayed like that for hours. Just the 3 of them. A family that had started as a transaction and become something neither of them had planned. Something worth everything they'd survived. 1 year later, Lena's mother came to visit. 18 months sober, clear-eyed, healthy. She walked into the house Victor and Lena had bought. smaller than the estate, warmer, full of light, and stared. "You did all this?" she asked. "We did," Lena said, "together." Her mother looked at Victor, at the man who'd once held her debt like a weapon, who'd used her daughter as collateral. "I don't know if I should thank you or hate you." "Both is fair," Victor said. "I'm not proud of how this started. But you're proud of where it ended. I'm grateful. There's a difference." Lena's mother was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. "I'm sorry. For the debt. For putting you in that position. For all of it." "I know, Mom." "Do you forgive me?" "I'm working on it, but yeah, eventually." Lena took her mother's hand. "You're sober. You're here. That's what matters." They sat together. 3 generations. Grandmother, mother, child. A family rebuilt from wreckage. And later, after her mother left, after Anna was asleep, Lena and Victor sat on their back porch, watching the sun set. "Do you ever regret it?" Victor asked. "Regret what?" "All of it. The contract, the marriage, the mess." Lena thought about it. About the fear and the danger and the nights she'd thought she wouldn't survive. About the moment everything changed, about choosing to stay when she could have run. "No," she said, "I don't regret it, because it brought me here. To you, to Anna, to a life I never would have had if I'd played it safe." "Even though it was terrifying?" "Especially because it was terrifying. The best things usually are." Victor pulled her close. "I was supposed to be your captor." "You were. And then you became my partner, and then my husband, and now you're the father of my child and the person I choose every single day." Lena looked up at him. "That's how this works. People change. Circumstances change. And if you're brave enough, you change with them." Is that the moral of this story? I think the moral is that nothing is permanent except the choices we make. You could have stayed the man your father raised. I could have run the moment I had money, but we didn't. We chose each other. And that choice made all the difference. Victor was quiet. Then, "I like that moral." "Good, because it's the only one we've got." They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned orange, then purple, then dark. Inside, their daughter slept safely in her crib. The foundation they'd built was growing, helping more people every month. Lena's mother was rebuilding her life one day at a time. And Victor had learned to play piano again, filling their home with music instead of silence. It wasn't perfect. Nothing was. They still fought, still struggled, still had days where the weight of everything they'd survived pressed down hard enough to hurt. But they had each other, and they had a future that wasn't written in contracts or obligations or fear. They had a choice, made new every morning, to stay, to build, to love. And that choice, that continuous decision to pick each other over easier options, was the only thing that mattered. Lena leaned into Victor's shoulder. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to change, for choosing to be better, for proving that redemption is possible even when it seems impossible." Victor kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for seeing someone worth saving under all the damage. You were always worth saving. You just needed someone stubborn enough to make you believe it. Lucky me. Lucky us." They stayed there until the stars came out, until the world was quiet and still, until the only sound was their breathing, synchronized after months of sleeping side by side. And when they finally went inside, when they checked on their daughter and climbed into bed together, when Victor pulled Lena close and whispered goodnight like a prayer, they both knew something true. They'd started as captive and captor, as contract and transaction, as two people trapped by circumstances neither had chosen, but they'd ended as something infinitely better, as partners who'd survived a war, as parents building a legacy of healing instead of harm, as two imperfect people who'd looked at the wreckage of what they were and decided to build something new. And in the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.